Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you for joining us today and welcome to our exciting event. I'm Gary Decker, the External Relations Partner at DC Green Bank. And as you can see on the screen, I'm joined by some colleagues. First of all, I'd like to introduce our CEO, Eli Hobson, our Director of Operations, Donald Walker, our Chief Investment Officer, Jay Lurie, and our Equal Access Advocate, Shira Coombe. You'll be hearing from all of us today about some of the exciting offerings we have. If you've been looking at your email and on social media, the two things that we're very excited about today are our new products we're launching and our new virtual front door, our new website. But you're going to hear quite a lot about the financial offerings that we have and what DC Green Bank is all about. You'll also see a colleague of ours, Latoya Thomas. She's the principal and founder of Brick and Story. So thank you for joining us today. We're excited to have you and excited to get into the materials. The first person up that you'll hear from is our CEO, Eli Hobson. He's going to talk to you about what to expect today and to get into some of our exciting news. Eli?
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. And welcome, everyone. I really appreciate you all taking the time today. As you know, DC Green Bank has been really focused on getting our operations up and running, getting our team on board, and we're excited to be moving into the next phase, which is really accelerating our deployment. And that's part of why we wanted to chat with all of you today. We are now ready for business. Thanks, Gary. You can jump to the next slide. So quick overview, Gary hit this, but I'm going to run through a quick overview, new website, a little bit of background on us, some focused areas on our product overview, and then I'll hand it over to the team to walk through our specific products and how we can work with all of you. DC Green Bank, the legislation was passed in 2018, but it took some time to get our board in place, took some time to get me in place and our staff in place. And so now we're fully staffed. We will have, as of tomorrow, 11 folks on board who are working hard and steady to make sure that we're deploying money in the community, working with all of you. Our goals are really DC goals. We want to help the city meet its climate goals. The first one of those, we focus on 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2032. That's going to take a lot of investment. That's going to take a lot of project work, and it's going to have to happen quickly. So we're really excited to be working on launching some new products today to help get those projects off the ground, Navigator that Donald will talk about, and also our existing offerings. Our goal is to fill the gaps in financing. So we have a commitment from the city for $105 million. That's a significant chunk, and it will be sort of your starter fuel. It's not going to be enough money to make all of the investments we need to reach the clean energy economy, but it's a good place to start. We focus on the areas that match our vision, our mission, and our core values. Our vision is a thriving clean economy for all DC, with our mission providing access to capital, growing the clean economy to develop a more equitable, resilient, and sustainable DC. And you'll see this throughout our presentation. This is really based on our core values, which come from the mayor and the council and our board of sustainability, clean economy, and inclusive prosperity. So sustainability, we focus on climate change, but also local air pollution, local water pollution. Clean economy, we focus on creating good jobs here in DC, working through our projects and with contractors like yourselves, and also on inclusive prosperity, making sure that our financings and our internal practices are creating equal opportunities for all DC residents, particularly those who've been disadvantaged historically due to race or income. Our 4 focus areas as we are kicking off: solar power, that's where our first projects were. We can do a range of different financing options for solar power, and you'll hear about some of those later. Stormwater resilience, particularly stormwater retention credits, green buildings, with the goal of helping to support the city's building energy performance standards as those are coming online, and also clean transportation, adding to the electric vehicle fleet that we have in the city helps to reduce air pollution and climate change and reduce cost of operation. So that's a triple threat. So our financial products, we're a financial institution. We're looking to get money out the door. Solar development and construction loans. This is a picture from one of the projects that we helped to fund, the Flywheel projects at Fairfax Villages, working also with the Solar for All program. But that's something that we're very interested in. We have several solar folks that we're talking to right now for the next round of projects, but welcome inquiries from any of you who would like to do more solar work in DC, really looking to accelerate the solar market. Our first product that's launched, commercial loan for energy efficiency and renewables. This is a loan loss reserve that we have with Sandy Spring Bank. Sandy Spring will fund your energy efficiency and renewable projects at commercial real estate. They can fund those up to a 12-year term or potentially longer. Looking for the size range, it's officially capped at 250,000, but in Montgomery County, many of the projects have been over that. And so we can go over that as well. So this can fund large projects that can reduce operating expenses for your customers. DC PACE is up and running. This is an existing program that's been run by the city since about 2014. We're working with Urban Ingenuity and DOEE on that. PACE offers longer terms and can do very large financings. Pre-development loans, Donald's going to talk about Navigator. We're excited to launch that today. And then we also do work in green, affordable multifamily housing, and really flexibility is the name of our business. We want to be helpful how we can. So we have an open RFP for your ideas and your solutions. But if you have a project that doesn't fit necessarily into one of these buckets that you'd be interested in talking with us, please do reach out.
So Eli, do you want to say something about the new site that we have now transitioned, both where you can find it and it's a little bit prettier now?
I do. The existing website that we had has been very helpful for getting us up to speed, but as part of our transition to being ready for business, we have moved from .org to .com. So please check it out, dcgreenbank.com. And if you go to the old website, you'll get redirected. But our main focus was making sure that the website is useful for those that we want to do business with and for the public and the residents of DC who want to understand what we're doing. So I encourage you all to check it out. It's much more streamlined. We've got a ton of information up there and opportunities to work with you, including information about our Navigator loan.
Thanks, Eli. Go ahead.
Great. Do we have polls for folks, Gary?
Yes, we do.
All right. So first question, I wanted to ask everyone, what sector are you representing today? And I'm not allowed to vote, so.
We'll give you about a minute to vote here. We really want to hear from you on these. You can see that there's multiple questions here that people are voting on. So Eli, go ahead and read all three.
So the second question, what brought you to the call? Background on the DC Green Bank, learn about financing options available, meet the DC Green Bank team, or ready to get to work. And then final question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable do you feel about the upcoming building energy performance standards process?
We'll give you about another 30 seconds to vote. I still see some votes coming in here. If you hear the laughing in the background, Eli's kids are very excited about the new products as well. I don't know if they're logged in on the computers, but they're very excited.
They don't get a vote.
About another 10 seconds here to vote. Looks like we got a few people still coming in. Five seconds. Okay, Latoya, go ahead and end the polling there, and let's see some of the results.
All right. So very excited to see we've got a good number of contractors and building owners and operators today, as well as community groups, financial institutions, and small businesses. Lots of others. We welcome you too. I'm really excited to be working with all of you. And as I said earlier, we can be flexible and work with a variety of partners. I'm so looking forward to hearing more from you all about what you're interested in working on. So glad to hear that some of you wanted to get background, but you're also looking to learn more about the financing options available for most of you today. So we're happy to share more details with you on that. And then finally, we've got a range of folks on how comfortable you feel about the upcoming building energy performance standards process. So, for those of you who are feeling a little less comfortable, a little less unsure, we're happy to walk you through how some of our options can help you meet those standards. For those of you who are comfortable and know what your requirements are, we're looking forward to offering some of the support potentially you might need to help bring your building up to the standards, not just for this cycle, but for the next cycle. And thanks everyone for participating in that.
Thanks, Eli. And again, thank you for participating in the polling. We're really excited to get into the heart of the conversation today. You will see later in the conversation, we will circulate links to you. We know we have some contractors on the call, which is great. And we will share some links so that you can get into contact with us to begin the conversation to talk more deeply about some of our financial offerings and how we can partner together. So without further ado, I'd like to now move it on to our Director of Operations, Donald Walker, to talk about our new product and officially launch it. Donald?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to talk with you a little bit more about a brand new product that we have launching today called Navigator. One of the pieces of feedback that we received as we were getting started and going last year was the potential to be able to help to fund some of the pre-development exploration processes of some of the green financing that people were looking for in the district. And so we are really excited to announce that we've been working with Inclusive Prosperity Capital, which is an organization that works with the Connecticut Green Bank to be able to recreate the Navigator pre-development loan for DC. And so what this loan is it's a pre-development energy loan that's a simple line of credit that funds customized design of energy improvements for both new and existing commercial, nonprofit owned, and multifamily properties. And so what's different about ours is that we are also being able to offer this product to commercial properties and commercial real estate in the district. And we want you to be able to take advantage of Navigator to be able to get a jump start on construction for some of your energy efficient upgrades that you might need, especially to be able to hit and meet some of the new energy performance standards that the district has put out. So what this does, what Navigator, the pre-development loan will do, you're able to fund energy audits and benchmarking, green chariots, engineering, bidding work, and then other energy related design and financing costs that come up from the beginning of a project as you might start to seek the best way to be able to attack that project. Generally, the loans are from $10,000 to $250,000. And we do have the ability to be able to lend more money on a case-by-case basis, depending on what the scope of the project might be. And generally speaking, the standard term of the loans are 24 months. So what will happen is that you would apply if approved for the loan, you would receive the disbursement for the loan, and then repayment on that loan wouldn't be due until one large balloon payment at the end of the 24-month term, or at the funding of the larger project. And so the idea would be for you to be able to get involved with Navigator and then be able to take a look at some of the other products that we will talk about to be able to fund your full project and and the balloon payment for that would be lumped into what the larger sum of the project would be. We're really excited to be able to offer some competitive interest rates. So when we are talking about affordable and multifamily and also nonprofit properties, we are offering an interest rate at 1.99%. And then for market rate properties and commercial real estate, we're able to offer a 3.99% interest rate on those properties. And so this product is launched on our website currently. And if the initial step here is going to be is that if you have information or would like more information about Navigator, you can email us at info@dcgreenbank.com. And then we will get in contact with you to be able to start getting you with the right forms for us to learn a little bit more about what you're looking for. Sometime later today or early tomorrow morning, there'll also be a online application that will go live. So you can always, once that button is there, it'll be a button on the bottom of the page as well to be able to help you to fill out that initial step. And somebody from our team will get in contact with you so that we can get you signed up for Navigator. And so, like I said, we're really excited about this product. It came from direct feedback from people like you in the district. And so we are really hoping to be able to jumpstart all of the projects that you have that you're getting excited about.
Thanks, Donald. This is the time, everyone, that if you have questions, please look at the bottom of your screen and click the Q&A button and go ahead and put those in there. If you'd like to ask the question live right now, you can click next to your name for the hand raising button to get into the queue to ask your question. As people feverishly type in there, I'd like to read out some of the other questions that we've had so far. One is a comment from Smita Thomas, just about the excitement of Eli's kids for our new product. In addition, Kendra, this is a great question that we'd like to get to maybe later in the call as we focus on Navigator for this session. Gregory DeHaven has asked us if copies of the presentation will be available. Yes, Gregory, great reminder for me. Not only will copies of the presentation be available, but we are recording this session and we will be able to make it available so you can go back and take a look. We also have the question, and Donald, this will go to you. And if you need assistance from someone else on our team, please feel free to throw somebody into the queue. How are the interest rates for the project calculated? And are there any minimum or maximum project size requirements?
Sure. So I'll answer the second part of the question first, and then I think I have a good answer for the first part too. So are there minimum and maximum project size requirements? Not currently. I mean, the minimum loan that we would give for a Navigator loan would be $10,000. And then we're generally speaking, we would go up to $250,000 for that. And so with Navigator, it's more about trying to figure out what needs you will have for the larger end of the project. As we talk about some of the larger projects that you might be incurring, because it might not be, Navigator is to be able to manage all of the pre-development costs, not necessarily the full project costs. And so a lot of times when you're trying to put together your scope of work or the architecture or being able to get some initial assessments, that's what Navigator is really focused on being able to do. For the interest rates for Navigator, they're listed as they are. So if you are and so it's at an annual percentage rate. If you are a nonprofit or affordable multifamily dwelling, then you would be at that 1.99%. If you are at market rate, then it would be 3.99% for Navigator. If I'm reading the question correctly, I think that you're probably wanting more information about interest rates for some of the larger projects once those actually get funded, and also minimum and maximum project size at that point. And so I will defer to Jay probably a little bit later. So maybe we don't make that question go away, because I think some of those questions might be answered in some of Jay's parts while he talks about some of the other products. And I hope that answered that question.
We also have a question from Michael Kennedy. Are there closing costs for these deals, and who would pay them?
For Navigator specifically, there are there is a initiation fee that we can walk through once we agree to the terms of the agreement, but there aren't necessarily closing costs for Navigator specifically.
Eli or Jay, anything to add to those questions so far? Okay, we're going to go to the next question. This comes from Joseph Nackstead. What qualifies as an affordable property?
That's a great question, and I'll apologize because I don't have all the information right off the top of my head, so I'll defer to also anybody in my group if I don't nail it. But generally speaking, DC has already put out what affordable housing and low to moderate income housing qualifications are. We have those specifically outlined in the Navigator agreement as well, and we can walk through all of those specifically. Because I don't know it right off the top of my head, and I apologize, I'll definitely phone a friend here, ask for some help if somebody knows it right off the top of their head.
Okay, if Eli and Jay want to jump in, have any flavor there, please do so. Our next question is, what is the interaction between Navigator and PACE financing? And we're going to get to our Chief Investment Officer, Jay Lurie, in a second, and he'll be the one talking about PACE. So Donald, do you want to answer this question, or do you want to wait until after Jay goes through PACE?
I think it would make sense to go through PACE first and then jump back to kind of talk about how the two can interact.
Great. And so let's do one last question here for Navigator. Is it possible for us to talk about, as a team, to review some concrete examples of projects that might be ideal for Navigator? So Donald, you first, and then I think I'll go to Eli there as well.
Sure. So one of the things that I think is really important about Navigator is thinking about if you've got to, for instance, replace your HVAC system, right? Say that the HVAC system that you have is not necessarily as efficient as it can be, and you want to change it over to electric, but you don't necessarily know all of the different steps that you need to take to be able to make that work. And so where Navigator would come in and be really helpful is to be able to, number one, come in and do an energy audit. And then also, number two, be able to start to engineer, to plan and engineer out what some of the work would look like for a larger project. And so where you might not necessarily have the funding right in the beginning to jumpstart that project, you would be able to use Navigator to be able to start some of that work on the engineering pieces and the audit pieces, and kind of understanding what all of your different options are. And we understand that that costs money to be able to do that. And so as the engineers would then design the rest of your project, you can use Navigator funding to be able to start to put some of those pieces in place.
And just to give another example, for the buildings in the city who are going to be subject to the BEPS standard and know that they need to make upgrades, but not necessarily sure where to start, Navigator could be used to hire engineering design consultants to help figure out how do they meet the standard, what's the what's the preliminary design that would be able to be a package of upgrades, whether that's just traditional energy efficiency or whether that includes a renewable component, to be able to put that proposal together to then go and seek construction financing, with the goal being that Navigator will then get repaid during construction financing, whatever form of financing that takes.
Thanks, Donald and Eli. Yeah, this is a very exciting product for those early stage projects where some of this cost may not be able to be financed in other ways. This is a gap that we're trying to fill, and we're really excited to be able to offer that to you. And as Donald said, you'll be able to go to our website, to the Navigator page, and we will provide that link a little bit later in the call. So you stay focused on us right now. So you can send us an email directly, and we can keep this conversation going as you consider projects of this nature. Keep questions coming as you have them, but we're going to turn now to, as I said, Jay Lurie, our Chief Investment Officer, who's going to talk a bit about our solar portfolio, our Clear product, DC Pace, and how you can bring any innovative ideas to us. Jay?
Great. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Donald. And the next set of our presentation will really complement what we're trying to do with Navigator. And as Donald mentioned, Navigator is at the pre-development stage. So there are, and this is an area where we find that there is not as much access to capital in the market, and so it's very important for us to be present there. We'll talk through a few other potential interventions that we can make and really help you bring projects to fruition. One of them is just on solar. Our first financings were a series of construction loans to projects that were sponsored by Flywheel Development, a local sustainable development company. This is part of the Solar for All 2020 program in partnership with the Department of Energy and Environment and DC Sustainable Energy Utility, whereby developers can submit proposals to be awarded a grant funding for projects that would effectively provide low middle income customers discounted electricity for last year, I believe it was 20 years. This year it's for a 15-year period. So in return for doing that, basically the developer does not earn revenues from the energy sales, but it gets this upfront grant and it's able to market the solar renewable energy certificates, and that's sort of the source of getting a return. And so in 2020, there were 8 sites in wards 4, 7, and 8 that Flywheel had developed. Of course, we all know that 2020 was a challenging year for parties that are working in the real sector to access financing. So a lot of banks found it challenging at least at the start to do due diligence and really in a time of a pandemic, and so Flywheel was in a crunch and needed to get financing to achieve the milestones for Solar for All, and so DC Green Bank came in and provided the construction facility that allowed them to build and install 8 projects. These projects created 28 full-time equivalent jobs during construction, and it's about at $1.78 million in loans for about 1.5 megawatts of projects. And so if we move on to the next stage, this is an example of one of the projects as part of that portfolio at the old Walter Reed facility, Abrams Hall, which is houses veterans, seniors, 130 residents, 470 kilowatt installation on the top of that building. And again, this is an example of one of the projects that we were able to bring, and I believe recently has achieved interconnection with Pepco. So it's a real, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do here is we provide capital where it may not otherwise be available. And I think as many of you are aware, when you're bringing projects up, of course, development stage, it's really hard to find capital. Construction stage, it can be challenging, especially when there's a tight timeline. And then once you get to the operation stage and a lot of that early risk is mitigated, there are more sources of capital available. And so we can also play in that realm, which we are considering for this next round of Solar for All projects. But ultimately, we are happy when projects start generating electricity and providing clean energy for customers and for our city. So I will move on to the next slide. So this is a product. This is actually the first product that we branded as DC Green Bank. It's called Clear, Commercial Loan for Energy Efficiency and Renewables. And you may recognize this name, many of you that are involved in projects throughout the Beltway, as this was initially branded by Montgomery County Green Bank. And we really have borrowed a very similar structure to that one. So what you see here looks pretty similar to what they have on the Montgomery County Green Bank website. So these are for generally smaller projects, $10,000 to $250,000. We could consider higher on a case-by-case basis. And these are meant for energy efficiency or renewable energy projects where, again, this would be to cover the cost of construction, the cost of equipment. And the interesting element here is that DC Green Bank's role would be to provide credit enhancement. And the way we do that is we provide a reserve fund at a local bank, and the local bank uses that fund in case there's a loss. And so it's called a first loss or loan loss reserve fund. And by doing that, we allow the local banks to provide more competitive rates in the market for all of our stakeholders that are looking for financing. We currently are in partnership with Sandy Spring Bank, very open to more partnerships under the Clear product. And so you can see here the types of eligible borrowers. You have commercial multifamily buildings, or tenants, condos, co-ops, et cetera, also nonprofits. And we already talked through a little bit of energy efficiency types of projects. And I think some of that will, Donald answered earlier, the types of energy efficiency projects also could be renewable energy, so solar. There is an authorized contractor skating step, I would say, for us to approve a clear loan. And you can see here the use of proceeds. So this is needs to be proven in terms of an energy savings of 15% or more, and the actual uses of funds need to be 70% or more for the energy efficiency and renewables. So there is an allocation, especially which we find to be useful during this time when a lot of small business owners are needing to make improvements generally in their structures. There is an allocation for up to 30% that can be in non-energy efficiency renewables. So just moving on here, I mean, this is one of the reasons why we introduced this product so early on in our development, is just because of you all, the familiarity in the market with this product. There's a lot that we can share and benefit from our partner over the border into Maryland, given the similarity in stakeholders that are involved from the contractor side. The other thing that's I think very important to mention here is that this is a tool for property owners to consider to be able to meet the building energy performance standards, which we know have come into effect this year, and are helping DC meet its climate goals for 2032 and 2050. So, these are, I think initially we were, when the product was introduced, it was really more of a carrot. Okay, here's what you can do to achieve energy savings, and we'll provide this loan loss reserve credit enhancement to allow you to have more competitive rates. There's also a stick involved now. I mean, with the building energy performance standards, there is consequence for not adhering to that compliance. And so this product is really here to as one of several tools to allow property owners to access capital. So I'll move on. And finally, with DC PACE, or almost finally with DC PACE. So this is another tool. This is, and I think there was an earlier question about how Navigator and PACE can work together. So I think typically you'd have, Navigator would be the early work, so the permitting and studies, et cetera, whereas PACE could come in when you're actually installing a project. And this is a product that was developed through a partnership between the Department of Energy and Environment and the current administrator, Urban Ingenuity. And it allows private lenders in the market to finance building upgrades. And the building owners end up paying these back through tax assessments over a long period of time, 15 or 20 years. And so DC Green Bank will be soon taking that under our wing as administrator. And so this is an offering we would like to put out to the market that, you know, when you come to us seeking a solution, this is one of the potential solutions for financing clean energy. And we can just move on. So the final thing I'd just like to say before passing it on to my colleagues is we have an open request for proposals on our website. You can click through and see what the criteria is for selection. This is, I think, for you know, projects that are relatively large. You know, and you can come to us with a proposal, and we will make sure to evaluate and be responsive and really to start a discussion. You can also contact us directly. You have ideas, proposals you wanted to submit. You see all of us on here. I think you'll get the contact info at the end. Please reach out. You know, we want to try to be creative to come up with financing solutions that may not be readily apparent in the market. And we want to serve that role. So look forward to working with many of you, and I will pass it on to, I believe, back to Gary and then to Shira.
Thanks, Jay, for that good overview. As you can see, we are launching Navigator today, our pre-development loan, and Jay just went through the remainder of our offerings. We want to make sure that you know about what core sector focuses we have and what products we're rolling out and that we have available to meet all of those various needs. So we're going to spend a few minutes now fielding some from a Q&A section here on what you just heard about from Jay. So that was our solar portfolio, that was Clear, that was DC PACE, and Open RFP. So we got to the question about the interaction between Navigator and PACE. It's sort of a difference in life cycle, where at the very beginning you would come to us and talk about Navigator as an on-ramp to our partnership for finance, and then we could move forward and have conversations about DC PACE, either right now with our colleagues at DOE and Urban Ingenuity, or as we take over, we can have the conversations directly. So we're really excited to be able to have different offerings throughout the life cycle. A question here, Jay, do you have to give up your SRECs for any of the loans, and will any of your projects support storage solutions like batteries?
So we understand that SRECs can be anywhere from 70 to 100% of the cash flow generation of a project. So very near and dear to the project sponsors. So I mean, there's various ways we can look at it. I think the first look would probably be that the project owner would own the SRECs, and we would provide financing terms based on those estimated cash flows from the SRECs and from energy sales. So they would be owned by the project owner. We would come in as a debt provider. So that would be the first look. There's of course different ways we can think about structuring, but that would be my first response. And in terms of storage, absolutely. You know, this is a priority for us as we think about how projects can have backup power, how we can make the grid more resilient. And we would love to explore projects that have a battery component, and even consider we've been in talks with other financing partners that are very interested in this. And so happy to discuss and figure out a way we can structure projects that have battery storage. Absolutely.
Thanks, Jay. And one more question here. As newbie, I'm a little confused about how Clear and PACE would be used differently. What scenarios would be better for Clear and which would be better for PACE?
It's a good question. I mean, there's a couple of, I guess, small points. So with Clear, we do have the sort of 2 to 12 year, although it could be longer, whereas PACE is 15 or 20 years. There's also the tax implications. So, PACE is, if for taxpayers, there's where that may not be available for other types of institutions, nonprofits, faith-based institutions, et cetera. So I think either could potentially be available, but the other thing I would actually say is Clear is only for existing buildings. So whereas PACE you can utilize for existing or new builds.
Thanks, Jay. I think that's a really important distinction there as people try to think through what part of a project these would be used for. One last question here. Sorry, Jay. Your Navigator slide mentions a focus on commercial and multifamily properties. Does it not handle any funding for single-family residential development or improvement projects?
I'm going to let Donald come back in on that one.
Sure. So for our Navigator program, unfortunately at the moment, no, it does not cover costs for single family projects. I think that as we continue to develop and continue to think about how DC Green Bank can serve the district, that's something that we can potentially explore in the future. But right now we are focused, all of our products are really focused on more of the, I don't want to misspeak here, but it's not necessarily focused on the single family or individual financing options.
Thanks, Donald. And certainly we are looking for ways to think about providing funding in the future. We can have a whole separate call on that in the future in terms of statutorily what we're allowed to do and what might have to happen for us to be set up in a way that could loan money to individuals. But currently we're not set up that way. But we would like to continue that conversation to see if there are partnerships that we could develop in the future to meet that emerging need. So now I'd like to turn to my colleague, our equal access advocate, Shira Coombe, to talk about an exciting new initiative. So we talked about an exciting new product, and here's an exciting new initiative where we're getting out into the community and making sure that we can meet some important needs. Shira?
Thank you, Gary. So good afternoon, everyone. I just want to talk to you a bit about our community engagement pilot right now. So we know that community-focused institutions and organizations serve in critical capacities throughout the district. And we can't and do not want to leave them behind on the pathway to a clean energy and an energy efficient future. And so where we're working right now is that we are engaging with nonprofits, houses of worship, amongst other institutions. And we know that from our conversations that many of these organizations are putting their internal infrastructure needs aside for the benefit of the communities that they serve. And so instead of taking their funds to put in a new heating system or upgrade windows or change the lighting, they are taking that money and putting it back into the community, which means there's, for many of them, there's a long list of delayed renovations that need to be done to their spaces. So what we want to do is take an opportunity to look at what's going on and how can we help, number one, save the most energy, and number two, save the most money over time. It really means a difference. It can mean the difference between organizations just going in and replacing equipment just with the cheapest option that they can find because funds can be limited, versus really taking a look at what's the most energy efficient system and helping to educate to say this system is more energy efficient, but also this is how it's going to save you money over time when it comes to utility costs. And so we are moving through this initial phase currently, having a lot of really great conversation, understanding how these organizations are impacting the district, impacting the lives of many people, how they're serving, even in the midst of a pandemic, still serving the communities around them. But also understanding what their needs are and where the gaps are in financing. And our goal is to really build out options and opportunities for additional financing options. And so that's where we are right now in engaging the community and really focusing on the nonprofit community, houses of worship, again, like I said, amongst other groups. So if you are connected to any nonprofits within the district or know of any opportunities where there could be a real benefit from some engagement with DC Green Bank, please definitely send them our way. And we are happy to see how we can help and support, but really want to focus on the folks that focus so much on others in their organizations. So I will turn it back over to you, Gary, and thank you all for attending today.
Thanks, Shira. And if you have questions on our community engagement pilot, you know where to put them in the Q&A section. Shira, I have one for you. What have the conversations been like with the community institutions you've been engaging with? What types of needs have they identified, and what have some of their questions and concerns been?
Right. So they're very humbling conversations because many of these organizations have been in the community for 50, 60, 70 years, some upwards to 100, 110 years that they've had a building within DC, and they're talking to us about how they're, still delivering lunches to people who aren't able to really come out of their space right now due to the pandemic and other issues beyond there, but delivering meals, and they're still serving the community, yet they're doing so in a space that doesn't have heat, or isn't functioning to where it should be functioning. And so there's issues with leaky roofs and just maybe not having air conditioning when those warmer months that we're all looking forward to, those warmer months roll around. And so the conversations have really been us discussing what the needs are. And for these organizations, it's really about how it's impacting them in the work that they're doing to serve their local community. And so they're just really trying to figure out, who can help and how they can help, how they can get the help that they really need.
Thanks, Shira. I'm not seeing any questions come in on this section, but I really do want to emphasize how important this is to us, that we are reaching out on this front. Shira was hired, and a key component of her work is to do this. And these pillars of community, nonprofit organizations, houses of worship, and other community-based organizations, we don't want to leave them behind. One of our core values, as we mentioned at the outset, is inclusive prosperity. And it means not only would it be bad if we left them behind, it's simply not in our mission to leave organizations like this behind. So we're really setting up this pilot to see what works. You saw other very targeted products. It is for this period of time, it is at this interest rate, for this particular purpose. This pilot is for us to sit down with organizations, really find out what the need is, and to tailor projects specifically for that, to get financing out the door so that they can lead on clean energy efficiency, like they lead on the other issues that they work on in the community. So a big shout out to Shira there. This pilot, the conversations have gone from just a couple institutions to over 20 now in the last couple of weeks. So we're very excited about that. Anyone on the call who regularly engages with nonprofit organizations or people in this group, please do reach out to us if you have questions or if you'd like to get people connected. Shira will be ready and waiting to have that discussion with them. And as interest increases, we can set up specific calls like this to just talk about what people need and to raise questions like that. So a big thank you to Shira for going through our community engagement pilot. Kendra, this is your moment. I'm coming back to your question here, and we're going to send it to our CEO, Eli. So this comes from Kendra Wiley. The question was, I have a question about electric vehicle funding. As you know, that's one of our core areas. Would the Green Bank fund training for auto repair and service people to repair electric vehicles? Eli?
Thanks, Gary, and thank you, Kendra, for the question. At this point, we're not offering workforce development funding, which I think was the question, although reading it again, you could be asking about repair directly. But in either case, this is an area, workforce development in particular, that we're interested in developing further, working with others in the DC space who are already engaged in helping build our clean economy workforce. In order to meet our goals, we're going to need a multitude of new folks engaged and actively working on a variety of new technology areas, including EVs. So that's something that we'll be working on developing in the coming months, similar to single-family residential offerings. That's an area we want to get to, but we are not there yet. But welcome your engagement and support as we develop those products.
Thanks, Eli. We have another question that I'm also going to kick to you from Michael Kennedy. Could DC Green Bank finance the purchase of real estate and the sustainability upgrades that would would be part of that overall purchase and sort of reopening of that space?
That's a great question, Michael. And generally, it's going to depend on the particular details. We have focused to date on financing the upgrades themselves and the related technology and equipment. In the right situation, I wouldn't want to rule out that we could be participant in the real estate financing. Typically, of course, the real estate's going to be more expensive and it's going to be a larger total ticket. So we'd probably look to partner with others for that, but certainly something we'd be interested in exploring.
Yeah, Eli, I'm gonna add on to that. If someone came with a private financial institution who was able to finance the purchase of the real estate property, is that something, and then they wanted to install rooftop solar or do some other project, is that something that they would come through with Clear? Is that something that they would come through for and talk to us through the open RFP process? How should they come and talk to us about that?
And it's going to depend on the particular situation. There will be projects that could fit into either bucket, but we design the products to be offering different tools for different challenges. So for example, if it's a very large project and you're able to obtain lender consent for the first mortgage, then PACE may be a good option. If the lender consent is an issue for whatever reason, potentially it's a condo building in which you've got, a very, very large number of lenders and that's no longer feasible, then Clear is a good option for the larger projects. Or if you're in the earlier stages and you're trying to figure out, we welcome a conversation to help figure out which of our product offerings or others in the city may make the most sense to pursue. So it's really, we're happy to have that conversation in the very early stages. Historically, it's important to have the sustainability considerations be happening at an early stage and to make sure there's funding available at that early stage so that, you don't get locked into a design, hard to change things after you've gone through permitting. So we want to make sure we're helpful when you need the help. And that's part of what Navigator is all about and why we're really excited to be launching that today.
Thanks, Eli. This is a moment. If you have additional questions, please put them in the Q&A function at the bottom. We got about 5 minutes left here, so please don't be shy. As people get up the courage to ask those questions, I'm going to ask our colleague Latoya to begin sending some of the links. So the first one that she's going to send is for our new website. Again, our brand new front door. We don't have a physical front door. As Eli mentioned at the outset, we all came on board during the pandemic. Eli starting in April of last year, and then on through we'll be 11 starting tomorrow. And so this is our front door. And so the new website, we're really proud of it. And so go ahead and take a look. And any questions, you'll see that there are multiple opportunities on there to get in contact with us, either through forums or you can email us at info@dcgreenbank.com to start some of these questions and have some of these conversations. The next thing I'll ask Latoya to send is about Navigator, our pre-development loan, what we launched today. You're the very first people to hear about it. And so March 1st marks the opening of our conversations on Navigator and this pre-development loan. The next thing I'll ask her to send is for Clear, our commercial loan for energy efficiency and renewables. These are all pages that we've put up on our news site where you can go and learn about the product and begin a conversation with us. The next thing, and you heard Jay talk about, is our open RFP for all those creative types out there who really want to start having conversations, blue sky conversations about what is possible in the district and how DC Green Bank can help. Please go ahead and take a look there. Shira talked about our community engagement pilot. And so again, we'd like you to come and have that conversation with us. So that link is now in the chat. And then, as Donald said, we are going to be having a very specific sign-up process for folks to come and talk to us and to become participating contractors, which is a process that will need to occur if you're a contractor out there listening in order for you to work with us on any of these products. So that should now be in the chat as well. Go to that page and reach out to us in the box you'll see in the top right-hand corner to to start that conversation. And in the coming days, we're going to have that sign up form for you so we can get all the information we need and virtually shake hands and start a partnership to begin to offer some of these financing options. We do have some additional questions here. Michael, yes, I was able to, I think, get to your question there. So we have a mind meld going. And from Smita Thomas, we have a question. Would DC Green Bank fund a battery installation in affordable housing? It would improve resilience and provide a distributed energy resource. Eli, is that something that we would consider?
Thank you for the question, and thanks, Gary. We are currently considering a solar plus battery installation in affordable housing, and that is that's the configuration that fits most simply within our existing focus and our existing products. I think if we can make a connection to energy efficiency and or renewable energy, then the battery is definitely something that we'd be willing to consider.
Thanks, Eli, and thanks, Smita, for the question. And thanks, everyone who provided questions today. You have 1 minute left if you want to try to sneak a question in here. We want to be respectful of people's time, so we're gonna close up right at the top of the hour. But if you have a question, please go ahead and drop it in there, and I'll keep my eye on it. As we close out, we really appreciate so many people joining us today to learn about our new products, our new website, and to really get excited with us that we are ready for business, ready to work with you. At all times, please get in contact with us through the site, info@dcgreenbank.com as well. And let's get to work. So I want to thank my colleagues, Eli, Donald, Jay, and Shira for joining us. And thanks to Latoya. She's the reason that all of these things go so smoothly. Thank you for participating in the polling, and reach out to us and let's start this conversation. Thanks everybody for joining us today. The recording and the slides will be available on our site in the coming days, and you'll get a follow-up email from Latoya as well. So let's get to work. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everyone.